Chapter 13 Fever and Friendship. By the time Lily and Ranger reached the Presidio, the sun was low in the smoke-clouded sky. Lily pushed her way through the crowd, past soldiers and trees and tents, until she started to see other Chinese people. "Back, excuse me," she asked an older man rushing past with a cup of water. "Can you tell me where the emergency hospital is?" The man pointed down a row of tents that seemed to go on forever. "Thank you." Lily and Ranger hurried along until they found a larger tent with carts and horses outside. The two men were carrying another man in through the open flaps. Lily and Ranger ducked in after them. Lily wasn't sure if dogs would be allowed, but everyone was too busy to notice. Doctors and nurses bent over patients on cots. Volunteers rushed by with bandages, medicine, and water. All the patients looked alike, hurt and bandaged, covered up, and scared. Lily couldn't tell if Lee was here or not. She started toward one of the rows of cots. Ranger followed Lily, sniffing at the matted down grass. Things weren't as dusty here, but lots of feet had trampled the earth. He smelled dirt and sweat and blood, and then he caught a quick scent of the May girl who dropped her doll. Ranger stopped and sniffed the air. "There!" He nudged Lily down a row of cots. "Where are you going?" Lily said. "Do you smell something?" Ranger tracked the scent to the far side of the tent. Lily trailed after him until she spotted Lee on the very last bed. May knelt beside him. "You're here!" Lily rushed to May's side and threw her arms around her. "You came!" May said. Ranger wagged his tail and sniffed at Lee on the cot. The boy was awake. He looked exhausted, and his cheeks were flushed, but he gave a weak smile when Ranger licked his hand. "Thank goodness," May said. "I got the papers, but I couldn't find you when I got back to the laundry. You didn't come. I was afraid." "We did come. You were already gone. The soldiers." May's eyes filled with tears. "It's all right," Lily said. "We're here. Did you find your family?" May shook her head. "I've looked everywhere, but it's like searching for a needle. Someone's dropped in a wide open sea." She looked at Lily's pack and smiled, reaching out for the little cloth doll. "You found my doll!" Ranger sniffed at the doll again and barked. He found May. He'd done his job again. But when he poked his nose deeper into Lily's bundle, the first aid kit still felt cool and quiet. When would he get to go home? "Is this your dog?" a nurse asked. Her eyes landed on the bamboo cage beside Lee's cot. "And Bird, too?" Lily nodded. "I'll take them out soon, but please, can we stay for a few minutes? The dog cheers my friend's brother." The nurse looked down at Lee and smiled a little, but when she put a hand on his forehead, her eyes filled with concern. "He's got a fever," she said. "Has he been treated for infection?" I'm not sure," Lily said. She tried to remember what the doctor had told them back at the pavilion. With the fire and evacuation, it all seemed like a blur. The nurse looked at May. "Where are your parents?" "I don't know," she answered. The nurse knelt beside Lee and curled her fingers around his wrist. She lifted the blanket that covered his legs and pressed her lips together. Then she turned back to May. "I don't want to scare you," she said quietly, "but you need to find your parents." "I looked for them when I got here, but it's so crowded. Everyone's huddled in tents, and I don't know where to start." May grabbed her father's jacket from the cot and pulled it close. "We'll find him, May. We will," Lily said. "I found you, didn't I?" She looked down at Ranger, who was sniffing at May's little doll. "Actually, it wasn't me. It was the dog. It sounds odd, but I think he smelt you." She paused for a moment, then took the jacket from May's hand and held it to Ranger. Ranger sniffed the woolen fabric. "That's May's father, Mr. Wong. Smell him?" Lily rubbed the sides of the jacket together and put it right up to Ranger's nose. Ranger sniffed again. The jacket smelled of dust and smoke. It held Lee's scent and May's and someone else's, but that person wasn't here in the hospital tent. Ranger looked up at Lily. "Stay with your brother. I'll take the dog and go look for him," Lily told May. She didn't want to leave the tent, not with night following. Not that she'd felt so alone and finally found her friend. But May couldn't leave Lee by himself. If the soldier was right, if they sent all the Chinese refugees to the Presidio, then Mr. Wong had to be here too. Lily gazed down at her tiny golden bird in its cage on the floor. "You watch over Lee while we're gone." She looked up at the nurse. "Is it all right if he stays just for a while, please?" She nodded. "Perhaps his song will brighten up his day." "He doesn't sing," May said. Not yet, Lily added, but maybe someday when things are better. Lily knelt and looked into the cage. The little canary hopped over to the side, just inches from her nose. It reminded Lily of the way her goldfish used to come to the glass to say hello. She took May's hand and promised, "I'll find your father. I will," when Lily picked up the jacket and headed back into the mall.